22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is BlackWestchester.com presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com, giving you that real talk for the community since 2014. I am your host, AJ Woodson. Dr. Bob is on his way. The lovely Lorraine Lopez will not be here today. She broke her ankle and her foot a Thursday night. They're about to, she got to see a foot specialist. They're going to see if they can put a hard or soft cast on. So she won't be here. And we do not know if Damon's calling in or not. We don't never know till he calls in. So I am here with you. And like I said, Dr. Bob is on his way. Couple of things real quick. So, we have a couple of things going on. I'm trying to see if we are on. We're not on YouTube yet. We're not on Facebook yet. It didn't kick in yet. Waiting for that to kick in. Okay, so we have a couple of things, a couple of announcements I wanted to make real quick. So there will be a. For everybody saw when I posted that my friend Kenneth Chamberlain, that his daughter died and was killed in a car crash, and in San Diego, she was in the Navy. Her funeral services, the funeral services for his daughter Shanice, will be Thursday, April 18th. Gathering, closed casket wake 3 to 5, and a funeral service starts at 5 at the Community Protestant Church, 1659 East Gun Hill Road in the Bronx. Again, funeral services for Shanice, Kenneth Chamberlain's daughter, will be Thursday, April 18th. And I will say that again later in the show. And also, there will be a memorial celebration of life fundraiser / reception for the late Mount Vernonite Orlando Moore, who died in the Dominican Republic. Was one of the two individuals who died in the Dominican Republic. They're having, like I said, a fundraiser / reception for him Tuesday, April 16th, from 5 to 8 at the Steam House Restaurant and Lounge, 128 Gramerton Avenue in Mount Vernon. Again, I will mention that later on in the show, but I wanted to get those up before I forgot. Congratulations. Okay, welcome everybody. We're on Facebook now. Welcome everybody tuned in on Facebook. Dawn C. Wright said, good evening, AJ, Cheryl Brown Lee, Fox, and Dr. Bob, who's on his way, is also tuned in. Okay, so I wanted to say congratulations to Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods won his fifth, I believe it's the fifth Masters. He is one master ahead of Arnold Palmer and one behind Jack Nicholson. He's also holds the record for the second longest distance between, what they call a drought, between major championships. Who's the first person? They didn't mention that. Well, anyway, but he had an incredible comeback. He's an incredible last round. I haven't seen it yet, but I've been hearing all about it, so I want to congratulate him. A lot of people had him out for the count, but as you see, he is still here, and he is still fighting, and he is still holding it down. A couple other things I wanted to mention. Oh, shout out to, so Thursday night I had the pleasure of going to Tasha Diaz's fundraiser. It was hosted by Walia, the Westchester Hispanic Law Enforcement Association. Shout to Hector Lopez and Eddie Martinez, the president and vice president. Also, she received endorsements from Walia, from the Yonkers Federation Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, from the Yonkers Mexican American Chamber of Commerce, from salsa legend Willie Colon, who was in the house, and several other organizations. You can see the whole story and everything. See her a video of the whole program on blackwestchester.com on the front page. Shout to Glenn Butler, Chris Breezy. Shout to Lorraine Lopez, who's tuned in. Again, I don't know if she heard, but I said she will not be here. She hurt her foot, so she's out for the count for a minute. So everybody, join me in your prayers and well wishes for Lorraine for a speedy recovery. And she's tuned in, so say what's up to her. Let's see what else is going on. I said Tasha's fundraiser. This has been a very, 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 very busy week. I went to another event last night, the St. Paul and Peter and St. Ursula Parsonage annual dinner. I went with Council President Andre Wallace. Very festive event, full of a who's who from Fleetwood. Shout to everyone that I met last night who told me, "Oh, we read your paper all the time," or "We watch the show all the time." You never know who's tuned in and who's following you. So I was, and I don't remember everyone who told me that. I know one was the owner of the Fleetwood Deli, so give him a shout out. And I don't remember who everybody else was, but for all of those who told me, they always tune in and they read the paper all the time. Thank you, Donna Nolan. Yes, happy Palm Sunday to all of you out there. This is the beginning of Holy Week for all of you who celebrate that. And there'll be events and services all week long. Today was Palm Sunday, where they give you the palms. Today is the day Jesus rode in on the donkey, and they waved the palms and said, "Hosanna, Hosanna." And 5 days later, they was like, crucify him, crucify him." The same dudes, like, yo. So today is that day. For all of those who celebrate that, happy Palm Sunday. Shout to Kenneth Chamberlain.
Crucify him, the same dudes. Like, yo.
I'm going to announce the funeral arrangements later on in the show again. But shout out to Kenneth Chamberlain and the whole Chamberlain family, all of Shanice's family, in their time of grieving. That's I'm trying to remember what else. I've been running all weekend. This has been a very eventful weekend. The paper scheduled to come out Monday will actually come out Friday on the 19th. It's dated the 15th, but it will actually come out on the 19th, which also means that you have 2 or 3 more days if you were one of those people that were interested in advertising and thought you missed the deadline. So you do. We have everything from business cards ads at $75 and going all the way up to full page ads. If you're interested, hit us at blackwestchester@gmail.com. 10% discount if you advertise in these last few days and pay electronically. If you're interested, definitely get in touch with us. But the paper will be out this Friday. Bunch of stuff in that paper. You definitely do not want to miss this issue. So we have a couple of guests in the house. It's going to be a packed show later on. Nas Duncan and mothers group. I think they're mothers of all that have lost loved ones to senseless gun violence in the street, and it's a group of them, and they're all coming in. You know the story of Nas Duncan. We always keep that. She fight for justice for the justice for her son. We always help her keep that alive. She's been on the show several times. Her and a group of women, mothers will be on later. And right now we have, hold up your book for me real quick because I don't have my copy. We have John Ahrens, the author of Trace, in the studio, and Marvin Church, friend of the show. Let me put them on the screen and turn on their mics. And let me give you an official People Before Politics welcome. So Marvin, how are you? It's been a minute since you've been here. Pull up your mics to you. You can use the computers in front of you, social media, let everybody know you're on, all that kind of stuff. So how are you doing, Marvin?
I'm doing great, AJ. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and talk about a little about ancestry.
Yes.
Been very dear to me, and John is one of my mentors that really got me going in this. But I just want to give a big backdrop on how I got started and my interest in this.
Okay.
Basically, in the early 1970s, my grandfather moved from Topeka, Kansas, to Peekskill, New York, where we lived. And
shout to Peekskill.
Peekskill, New York. And so I was in high school at that time, and I asked him a lot of questions about his mother, his father, his brothers, his family, and he said he didn't have any memory of those individuals. All he remembered at that time was that the family owned 100 acres in Texas. And he told me about that. And the family owned that land from 1860 to the mid-1930s. And the reason for him leaving Texas was because his life was threatened. It was a big area where the KKK was situated in Texas, and he left. He left the land there.
Now, what time frame is this?
That was he left Texas in the 1920s, but his life was threatened by the 30s when he was trying to go back to reclaim the land. But through my search by using Ancestry, I was able to find his mom's name, his family connections, his father's name, his father connections, and I've been able to go back quite a bit of centuries about my family. But again, in the late 1970s...
People are asking, can you pull the mic closer to you?
Later in the 1970s, I was in Dallas, Texas, and I said, let me go on to Bell County, Texas, which was 2 hours away from Dallas. So I went there and went to the courthouse and started doing some research on the family, remembering what my grandfather had told me at the time, a while back. And I went to the courthouse, received a lot of the documents from the courthouse, but I didn't tell them my name because my grandfather said if they knew who you were with the 100 acres, you might not make it out of Bell County. So I changed my name, told them I was doing a research paper, and the interest at that time was the TV roots. So I told them I was doing a research paper, and I was a graduate student doing research on the land. So I was able to gather a lot of documents on that, and it was very helpful. Then later on, I had the opportunity. When I lived in California, I used to go to Salt Lake City a lot. It's one of my transportation cities where we worked. And in Salt Lake, they have a great deal of ancestry material. And I went to their research facility in Salt Lake near the Mormon Temple. And I was able to gather a lot of family documents on that also. I started my search in ancestry as a gift my wife gave me in 2013. Since then, I've been able to join various DNA programs such as DNA 23andMe, GEDmatch, FTDNA, DNA Family Tree, WikiTree, Jenny. I really found out, I really was hoping that I had more I had more Native American blood in myself, in me, because at the time, I believe it's 22%, John, you correct me on that, but through the 1866 Dawes Act, there was only 4 tribes that the United States identified, and since my family was from the Kansas, Oklahoma area, I felt that we were one of the civilized tribes. But unfortunately, I found out my percentages. I didn't make the 20% cut for being a Native American. I ended up being 92% African, 2% Native American, and 4% European. But from my research so far, I've been able to identify 2,500 relatives that are from first cousins to fifth cousins. I've contacted 2 cousins that are fifth cousins that are in Africa, and found out one of them on my father's side and one on my mother's side, and traced some of the history of how, from the slave trade, what part of the families in their areas left and when it had to be traveled over to the Americas. And that was a very interesting conversation on the phone, using WhatsApp app up to Africa, and talking and contacting them on email was a very fascinating situation. Also, I was able to contact a relative, and he contacted me in Atlanta, and found out that I have a couple of cousins here in Mount Vernon. Never knew that, but they were connected on my mom's side. And that person who we finally met, his name is Michael Hammond, and he's a cousin on my mother's side. As I did more research, found out I had a 4th cousin that lived in Texas, and traced their family journey from Tennessee to Kansas to Texas, and their name was Parks. And this cousin, who was a 4th cousin, she's related to the famous photographer Gordon Parks.
Gordon Parks.
And connected on my father's side of the family. I've then connected with a lot of my European relatives, but one thing I've noticed, and John will talk about his book, but what I've noticed a lot of our European relatives do not like to know that they have a lot of African in them. It's very funny.
I'm not surprised.
But some of them
it's like telling people from Sicily that they got African in them, and they might cut you.
But one thing I've discovered on my travels and doing my research, I've connected with people in Sweden, Norway, the Philippines, Brazil, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Vietnam, and Korea. And that's because of Vietnam. A lot of our relatives went to Vietnam, and they had children from that situation, and also in the Korean War, relatives had relatives in the Korean War. But one thing I really noticed, and my wife is Jamaican, and what she helped me to realize, and doing her research, that the records in Jamaica are meticulous. They can go back to what slave ships they were on.
Wow.
They can look at a whole lot of history in Jamaica as to what families the connections are. And so their records are fabulous. I wish we had the same kind of records here in America, but unfortunately we don't, and it's by design. But as I did my research even there, I had the opportunity to find out I had another Jamaican cousin, 4th cousin. She's very famous she used to be on CNN a lot. Her name is Michelle Bernard. She's a 4th cousin. Okay. I've contacted her to see if she would contact me, but I realized that a lot of African Americans, we have a lot of roots in the Caribbean. We don't realize where our brothers and sisters are located because of the slave trade and the selling of each family member.
Right.
But it's fascinating. I've really discovered a lot through that approach. And then just recently, as of yesterday, I got a hit from a relative as a 5th cousin. She put a dialogue in her bio and said that she's from Peekskill, New York, and she lives in Florida. Mm-hmm. Never met her before. I didn't realize I even knew her, but found out we went to church together in Peekskill.
Wow.
And she remembered who I was, and I didn't remember her, but she remembered me, and we are 5th cousins, and now we're trying to trace how we are related. But it's a fascinating approach of how things are done and how things are seen during this ancestry approach.
My sister, Nicole,
mm-hmm.
her husband gave her the gift of Ancestry.com, and she's been tracing our family She can speak a lot more intelligently about it than I can, but I do know that we're four generations from slavery, and we're actually 3 generations Westchester, Mount Vernon, and New Rochelle.
Wow.
Which a lot of people can't say, because a lot of people, either your parents are not here, and if your parents are from here, your grandparents are not from here.
Right.
But we're 3 generations, both Mount Vernon and New Rochelle.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I think she's going back as far as 1820 or something like that.
That's great.
So I found out a couple of things that I did not know and I never thought about. So if your name is on a census before 1860, you probably were not a slave, because the slave masters, they listed. They might have just listed first name, all of their slaves. But if your family is listed separately as in the census, they probably were not slaves.
Yeah,
so stuff like I really never gave a thought about back then. So she's going through census records and all of that stuff, and
that's what I've been doing a lot of.
Yeah, so great. she can tell you a lot more. Those are the things that I retained. I'm 4 generations from slavery, and I'm 3 generations. Mount Vernon and New Rochelle.
Wow, that's great.
My dad's family is from New Rochelle. My mother's family is from Mount Vernon.
Wow.
So, and then you find out that you live in a place like Mount Vernon. If your family's lived in Mount Vernon for a long time, you're linked to every other family. You're just close to people. Like, I found out one of my uncles and Sean Patterson, how his uncles were Hellraisers back in the days together.
Wow.
Like, I just you just find out all kinds of things. Like,
wow, that's great.
Not an uncle that I know, but it's because it would be my great uncle, I guess, or whatever. Yeah. So, and her grandfather. So,
wow, that's great.
But you just and everybody knows each other from Mount Vernon. Like, I found out that several people that I hung out with. Their mother and my mother hung out, like Talent, the comedian. Our mothers knew each other. Wow. Knew each other. Both our mothers have passed in the last couple of years. But you find out that this small town, how small it is, and my sister is very interested. She's digging, and she was able to find other people who had already started looking, and because of certain connections, she was able to get hints or whatever to go into them. And so I found out that I'm also from Henderson, North Carolina. So I found that so I did digging on my own. So Henderson is named after a judge. So he probably was the slave owner, because the town was incorporated before slavery was over. So, and it was named after him, and he probably had a big plantation, and that's probably why it's called Henderson. And he probably was the family that owned my family. So,
and one thing that I found was that still in the 1800s, I found that a connection on my father's side, my father's father, which is hard to get information, that he grew up in the 1840s in North Carolina. But his family goes back to South Carolina in the 1800s, and he was on the plantation where this great senator, racist senator, was from South Carolina, and it's not Jesse Helms, it's the other senator, Strom Thurmond. They were on the Thurmond's plantation. It was fascinating. It was very fascinating to learn that. But getting back quickly to my quick overview, is that the young lady who I met yesterday, I realized that I also went to high school with her first cousin. And her first cousin despised me completely. I said, so when you contact your cousin, let her know that we are related, and tell her I'm doing quite well, and if she wants to get in contact, she may, but let her know we are cousins. So you never know who you're related to.
Right.
You could be, it's like I said, this young lady I was talking to all along at church didn't even know we were related at all. That was no clue.
Yeah.
But now, after my little background, I wanted to introduce John Ahrens. John and I work together, and John has assisted me greatly of dealing and helping me to put my African American history jigsaw puzzle together, because it's a jigsaw puzzle. I
just want to stop just for a lot of people just tuning in. So we're dealing with ancestry right now.
Yes.
I just want everybody to know what topic, and we have the author of a book called Traces, and the other gentleman is Marvin Church, and he's telling you about his ancestry right now. Go ahead.
So John wrote this book, but all the questions I would have, John would assist me say, Marvin, you need to look this way. I know it's difficult. I can go back to right now 1840 for my great-grandfather, and I'm looking at different family histories, and I can start tracing back maybe now to maybe 1600, but I'm trying to still put the puzzle together. On my grandfather's side, my mother's side of the family, I can go back to 1750 because they've had good records and they didn't move a lot and they were in certain locations. However, they changed their names from one name to another. And I
found that out. I found that too. My last name might not be Woodson. It might be Hubbard. Yeah, I might have supposed to have been Hubbard, not Woodson. I found that out too. Yeah.
So John wrote this book, and I started reading it, and a lot of the things in his book has really helped me to really be able to focus on different things I'm trying to do in my search of my heritage and my family. And John's been very helpful for me. And his book, I think, is going to be helpful for everybody else, so I'll turn it over to John.
All right, thanks, Marvin. Thanks, AJ.
Pull the mic up to you.
All right. Yeah. So I, about a year ago almost, I did this sort of mathematical calculation. And I said, if you go back 10 generations and you choose one couple from that generation, and that couple has 10 children, and each of their children has 10 children, and you carry that forward to today, how many descendants would there be from that single couple 10 generations ago? And do you have any idea what that number might be?
No, but it seems like it would be a very big number.
Well, it turns out it would be 10 billion.
Wow, now that would
people.
Never, I was going to say million something.
So that's 10 billion people in the 10th generation alone.
Wow.
That doesn't count their parents who would still be surviving and whatnot, which would only be 1 billion additional people. But if you consider that there's only 7.3 billion people on the planet right now, that means that theoretically we could all be descended from the same couple just 10 generations back. Now, there would be a lot of extraordinary circumstances that would be required to make that happen, but that was sort of the inspiration for this book. So I wanted to show that as early as 10 generations ago, people who would be eighth cousins could theoretically be related. And so the story revolves around 10 individuals who, for a variety of reasons, decide to take a DNA test or are asked to take a DNA test and get into the DNA testing systems, get the results out there on the web, and start to find each other because they have DNA matches with each other. Now, at 10 generations, there's very, very slight chance of having, being able to find that connection, but there is a chance.
Right.
And when you got 10 billion ancestors, the chances are a lot higher. So, so that's what the story is about. It's about these people from across the world, from the United States, Central America, South America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia, all sort of going through some process to find their families or research their DNA and finding out that they're all related. So that's kind of the basis of the story. But at the same time, because I'm a genealogist and I've been doing genealogy for, 10 or 12 years now actively, I go to these genealogy conferences. I'm a member of the Association of Professional Genealogists, the National Genealogical Society, and I go to these conferences and you always hear the same thing, or even on Facebook, or on the internet, or on the Facebook group pages, people complaining, why don't people answer my emails on Ancestry? Why don't people connect trees to their DNA results? And it's a frustration amongst many people in the genealogy world because that's how they, are best able to use that information.
Right. Like I said, my sister got hints from other things, and
right, exactly.
she was able to find out that we were related to this group of people or whatever.
Right. The research that you have in your house might be, the golden ticket for somebody's, brick wall, as they call it in genealogy. So I kind of wrote this book inspired also by that, just to give all of these people who take, these millions of DNA testers that, that enter the system every year, give them an insight as to what they could possibly find if they do start connecting their trees and they do start doing more with their DNA and responding to people from their messages. Now, like Marvin said, it's common that people say, oh, there's a black person in my tree, I don't want to talk to them, what caused that? And I talk a little about that in the book, and I'm not that kind of person. I like just the opposite. I was disappointed that I did not have any African ancestry. And depending on which test you look at, one of them has like 0.2 or North African, but it is a challenge, and African American ancestry is particularly challenging because, as you just pointed out, there's before 1870, anybody who was a slave in the United States was not named in the census. They were indicated by a blank space with their gender, M or F, and their age.
Right.
And it was under a list of under a list of the name of the property owner.
And at that time, we were considered 3/5 of a man.
No, I think that was after. I think that was after that point. That was
after. Wasn't it for
during
slavery?
reparations? I think was the 3/5.
Because I know they wanted more representation in Congress, and that basically, they had all these slaves, and what I mean, and that they were able to count them, but they didn't want to count them as a whole.
Right, because there were more African Americans than whites.
Right, so they
would be outnumbered.
that enabled them to have larger representation in the House of Representation.
Right.
Because for the higher the number, which is important with the census anyway. When we have a census coming up, it's important that we everybody fill out their census and
you have to be counted.
Participate. Yeah, because it determines the dollars your city or state or whatever get. Lorraine always talks about Yonkers is at that 190,000. They just can't get to that 200,000, but if they were able to get over the 200,000, it'd be a whole lot more funding for the city of Yonkers, and there's little things like that we don't understand. Also, I know I try to explain to people the importance of knowing your heritage. Other groups of people can trace it back to some family crest or something, or some king of something. Right. But as African Americans, we very rarely know much more. I mean, we're taught in history, like our history started at slavery. We're not really taught much before that. So,
Right. So with the DNA testing, particularly, I would say Ancestry is really good right now, and My Heritage is really good right now. Doing those tests, you can find your African, at least to the country level, where your ancestors came from, and I think that's really important. I just kind of actually want to caution a little bit. I know there's a company called African Ancestry, and they do great work, but their focus is on the Y and the mitochondrial DNA, which are really only your father's line, your maternal line, and your paternal line. So your mother's 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 mother, and your father's 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 father. And that's only one small subset of your whole ancestry. So you kind of want to use caution when using those, because they won't give your full ethnic ancestry.
Right.
But yeah, it is a way to find your ancestry. And in fact, recently, just last December or November, Ancestry updated their calculations, their algorithm for calculating the ethnicity estimates, and they really kind of eliminated a lot of the trace ancestry, which, since I was writing a book called Trace, was a little bit disappointing to me. But I think it also loses the fact that I do know that I have an ancestor who was a Spanish Moor, and in my father's DNA, that person shows up as Middle Eastern ancestry. Mm-hmm. You take away that trace ancestry, and that's sort of erasing a part of my heritage, and I really was not very happy with that.
Now let me ask you, for the people, we see the commercials and we hear all of this stuff. A lot of people are skeptical, first giving your DNA one, and how accurate this information really is. So can you speak to that for those who?
So definitely, I would say always read the privacy statements, understand what you're doing and what your DNA is being used for. Ancestry is fairly secure. I do know that is it 23andMe, I think, is has some sort of partnership with Pfizer or one of the drug companies, because 23andMe is much more medical and like DNA traits, like genome type traits. Yeah, and that one's a little bit, you might want to, not that there's anything wrong with it. I fully participate in all the research on all of these sites. But if that's something that's you're uncomfortable with, then that was something you would want to consider.
Wow.
Generally, DNA ancestry is generally fairly straightforward. Your information is anonymous. It's encrypted, so people can't see who you are. But in theory, they have your DNA. They could identify you through your relatives or whatever if they really wanted to, and that's how people are found. Like Marvin was just saying with GEDmatch, that's how people can find criminals or whatever. What was the one, the Golden State Killer or whatever his name was?
Sacramento.
Yeah. So there are ways that you can identify people even if they didn't take a DNA test.
Now let me ask you a question also. So, how accurate? Since there's several different ones, go into multiple different format or different companies.
Right. So it's important. It's really important to remember that ethnicity estimates are estimates. And the number that shows up on Ancestry or 23andMe or MyHeritage or whichever one that you choose to use, it's like the center point of a range of possible percentages of your ethnicity. So if it's like Ghana and it says you're 32% Ghana, it might actually you're anywhere from 20 to 40%.
Okay.
So it's an estimate. So you're going to see variation from DNA testing company to one from one to another, simply because they're using different
algorithms.
They're using different the backup for the source material, all of the other DNA tests that they have to pull from to determine what those algorithms are different for each company.
Now, what's the chance of them getting the information wrong? Like, saying you're from Ghana, but you're from Nigeria or something like this?
I think that's becoming less and less likely as more people are taking tests and they're able to refine their results. But even just last year, my results said I was 22% Scandinavian or something like that. And I don't know of any Scandinavian ancestors. Do I look even remotely Scandinavian? No. So, but
actually, I don't know what Scandinavians look like.
Blonde hair, blue eyes.
Oh, yeah, okay. And I'm sure other people listening say, I don't know what a Scandinavian looks like.
Yeah, blonde hair, blue eyes. Swedish type of thing.
Okay.
In fact, the Scandinavians were the Vikings. They were the ones who conquered the North and all the North Europe. So Germans, French, English, Irish, Scottish, all of them will have Icelandic. They will all have Scandinavian ancestry. So for a long time, they just sort of generically said you're Scandinavian. Okay. But now they've since refined it, and I think it went from 20% down to 2% in my DNA.
Okay.
So that other 18% has been reallocated to the Germany and the England and whatever.
Now, did you find using different formats that you got more of a fuller picture, or from?
Yes, I think you do, because I know that I think it's my heritage results still indicate for my ancestry as having North African, which is that Spanish Moor that I would have ancestry from, which is 11 generations back, and it's 0.2% or something of my DNA. But you still have that. So I think, but whereas Ancestry doesn't have that, doesn't show that. So you can find different things with different companies, and then you can also go to GenMatch. GenMatch is a free website that allows you to download your DNA, what's called a raw data file. You download that from any of the companies, Ancestry, 23andMe, Family Tree DNA, what's the other one? MyHeritage. And then you can upload it into GenMatch. And what that does is, first, it allows you to compare your results to other people who have taken tests with the other companies, which you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
Okay.
And then it also allows you to run tests to see, there's like a number of admixture tests. So if you know that you're predominantly African American or of African ancestry, you can use one of the African admixtures, which will be more refined for your population.
Right.
Whereas if I were to put mine in there, I mean, mine comes up with like pygmy and all those other strange things, and I'm just like, yeah, well, it's like, I doubt that I have any of that. So it's so there are admixtures that are sort of designed for more a refined view of your particular DNA.
The other thing that helped me a lot, John turned me on to GenMatch, is that I was able to pinpoint what generation that family was connected.
Okay.
Yeah, so GenMatch will show you like how many generations back you are related to another person that also tested on GenMatch.
Okay.
And so it will say like 4 or 4.2 or 4.5. And generally if it's 4, that means you're 4 generations separated, like you're, I think, third cousins. If it's like 4.5, that would be like third cousins once removed. And 5 would be fourth cousins. So
that's interesting. I didn't know. So
the fascinating thing, what I've learned, and John's been helpful, is that I can start pinpointing the year, a range of the year, a span of year that person, that family was connected with me.
Right.
That's the fascinating thing. When you start getting into this really deeply, sometimes I'll get up 6 o'clock in the morning and finish midnight. I didn't even realize it was midnight.
Yeah. That's what my sister. She's all in.
Yeah.
And just for everybody who's just tuning in, you listen to People Before Politics. We're dealing with Ancestry. We have author John Ahern. Did I say Ahrens? Ahrens.
Yeah.
Okay. Of a book, author of a book called Traces, and Marvin Church, a friend of the show. And welcome, Dr. Bob has just entered the building. He is here in living color. He is here. So that's what we're dealing with right now. We're talking about Ancestry. A lot of people are saying great information and stuff like that. If you have any questions, please put it in the comment section, and I will ask for you. Feel free. So,
AJ, the other thing that's important, and John and I talk about this all the time, when we look at these census, I was able to see my great-great-grandfather voting in 1866 with his ex, and have documents showing that he signed the rolls to vote in 1866 in Texas.
Okay.
And it's fascinating. Then found out that my grandfather, because my great-grandfather didn't want him not to be able to read or write, went on to college and graduated from college in the early 1920s. But it was fascinating to see that history of a person not able to read and write, very bright person, probably. My grandfather knew was a brilliant guy, could speak fluent Latin and Greek and all that kind of stuff, and I barely was getting through Latin in high school. Iliad, Virgil and Iliad. And, he was fluent in that, and I just couldn't. It was fascinating. But you get to learn a lot, and like I said, I get to meet a lot of people. But one thing I'm learning more and more, we don't know who we're related to.
Well, that's
the most fascinating thing. I could be related to Dr. Bob. Who would know? We have to do research on that because I have so much history that we need to be connected with. We don't know. We really don't know.
So one of our listeners, D. Wilson, said, no disrespect, I was told that people of color should really take DNA tests from African ancestry, and it will tell you the tribe in Africa our ancestors were in and which one we belong.
No, that's a good sign.
Right, yeah, so that's why I pointed that out earlier. And African ancestry, they only test the Y DNA for men only, obviously, and the mitochondrial DNA for both men and women. And what that is the lineage that comes from your mother's mother on up, for the mitochondrial DNA, and for the Y DNA, your fathers. So yes, it will tell you the tribal origins of that individual, but that's one of 100 ancestors that lived in Africa, and you're only finding out about one of them.
So you don't find out about like your mother's father, your
Right,
grandfather's
exactly.
side,
So
and his father. And
right. So in fact, I was watching a video on this a couple weeks ago, and this young woman who had her own YouTube show, and she was African American, and she was very excited to find her African tribal roots. And she took an African ancestor, and she was like, I heard that ancestry's bad. They don't give you the tribal stuff and all this stuff. And then she was like, so I'm taking this African ancestry test. And so she took it, and of course she could only take the mitochondrial test as a female. And it turned out her test result was European. And she's, similar in color to Marvin here, and she was stunned. And she was like upset because all this was live on her YouTube channel. She had like cut it off and then go talk to her mom. Mom, what's going on? What do I don't know? It turns out that her great-grandmother or her great-great-grandmother was a white woman. So that one white woman out of 32 great-great-grandparents gave her a European result. But that's only one person out of those 32 great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents.
But my little trick, what I do when I go on Ancestry, they will tell you where you identify, what countries you're from. What I've been able to do is go through my, 2,000 hits of relatives and try to look through, making sure none of them had any European or any other ancestry. And that's how I was able to find my 2 African relatives and was able to connect with them. And that helped me out a lot because I was able to talk to them on WhatsApp. I was able to talk to them about what family side, what tribes, the generations where these folks were. If it was Cameroon, Nigeria, all the various countries that I'm made up of that 92%. I was fascinated over that. But you have to be able to do some homework and things like that. But one thing, John, you and I were talking earlier, and I was talking to Dr. Bob earlier, about the 1870 census, the importance of that.
Right, yeah. So I think that in this sort of political climate that we're in right now, and this was something that Marvin and I were talking about earlier as well, a lot of the Democrats are talking about reparations, and they're putting this as a part of their party platform, and which is great. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think I for one am a little skeptical as to what's going to happen after the election. But part of what that will probably lead to, logically, is proving that you are a descendant of a slave.
In America.
But there's a group outside of the politicians. There's a group, ADOS, that's starting to make a lot of noise. American Descendants of Slavery, and they're doing a lot of work, but I see that they're having conflict with other groups because the group's name is American Descendants of Slavery. So for Caribbeans who are also descendants of slavery, they would not be included in this, whatever lawsuit it would be, because they're not an American descendant of slavery.
Right, that's absolutely true.
And there's been some division I've seen going back and forth as of recent, going between.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I was telling Marvin, Barack Obama would not be eligible for those reparations. He does not descend from African slaves. He descends from a Kenyan and a white woman.
I just want to, jump in and add that payments to individuals is one possibility for a reparations program here in the United States. And other alternatives that may overcome some of the policy objections and provide basis for alliances would be a kind of collective reparations program that focused on economically deprived communities that were largely constituted of persons of color. So you wouldn't necessarily have to determine each person's eligibility. The idea is to build up the community as opposed to individuals. And I think that's it's a preference that I would proposed, although I think any reparations discussions are
I just,
Absolutely.
I just had to add too. So Dave Chappelle, when he had the show, the Chappelle Show, he did a skit. Black people got their reparations. Cadillac stock went up, and KFC stock went up. And it was just like he just went like what all people would spend money on, and a lot of them were broke afterwards. It was just a skit that he did. I agree with Bob. I think in building up the community as opposed to writing a check to someone. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you give somebody money that's not ready to have money, they're gonna just go through it. If they're not,
I agree with you totally, but we have to look at what happened in World War II with the Japanese. We have to look at what happened with other ethnic groups. Like I said, I know I receive my money because I have proof, and you have proof from your
It's
family.
documented.
It's documented. I have my documents.
all right.
It's just a very interesting concept. I just think.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Well, I mean, this country is still not ready to deal with slavery as its original sin. They still, a lot of people want to say, "Oh, that was back then. I don't own no slaves now. Y'all should get over it." But, and no disrespect to any other group of people, but like you just mentioned, the Japanese and the Jewish people of Jewish faith, you don't tell people to just get over the Holocaust.
Right.
You understand? Like, you don't have that conversation. You only have that conversation with African Americans. You tell them, "Oh, y'all should get over it by now. Y'all should be over." But you don't tell them, people of Japanese, and we've paid, and there have been, I don't know if it's been reparations, but there have been millions and millions and millions of dollars especially for the Holocaust, and no disrespect to, I mean, that was a terrible time in history, but it was a crime that didn't even take place on American soil, and they're not ready to address the crime that actually did take place on American soil. And I think that's one of the issues that I have, and for those people that don't realize the systematic effect that it has trickled down from generation to generation. And, if you're not of this complexion and you don't walk that every day and you don't deal with that, like I tell people, they can be a lot of things and they can disguise that. I can't go anywhere and hide that I'm black. Like there's certain doors I can't get in because I'm black. I mean, even in 2019. But, you can be Jewish and you can fit in and you just look like another regular white person. You can be several other things, and there's some Hispanics that look white. You can walk in certain doors. I can't never disguise that I'm black.
But one thing, AJ, that I've been seeing a lot, especially with my search, a lot of my Latino family members, some of them recognize that they are black, but a lot of them have African in their blood, in their system. And some of them still don't want to recognize that. And I've been able to talk with a lot of my Puerto Rican relatives, like I said, in Colombia and all those things, in Central and South America, which is fascinating. Didn't realize Brazil was the second largest slave trade in the world outside of America. But it's so many people, like I said, I found relatives in Brazil. I found people in Colombia. It's just fascinating. It's just, and you never know. And especially with my Caribbean brothers and sisters, here I am, African American. I'm married to a wife that's Caribbean, and the relationship that I had to learn, it wasn't much to learn. I mean, one thing, when I first met my wife, I said, I like eating collard greens. She said, "We have callaloo." I said, "What is that?"
Right.
It's the same thing.
Right. You have different names for different things.
It's fascinating.
You have some cultural background, some cultural differences that you have to deal with.
But the records, like I said, the records in the Caribbean are phenomenal. If you look through those records, they can tell you the slave ship, they can tell you who you worked with, the family worked with, everything. It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
And like I said, John's book has really opened my eyes to a lot of things. It's really helped me a lot to identify certain things that I need to help me with my research, even though you would say this is a fiction.
Yeah, it's a fictional story, but I use it to sort of teach people about DNA testing and the results that they're going to find, what all the different terminology is. There's a glossary in the back of the book because it does have a lot of heavy terminology. So that they can understand when they get a DNA test result from any of the companies, they can understand what it is that they're looking at and know what these words mean. And like African ancestry, they do haplogroup research.
Now, what's that?
And so haplogroups are it's sort of like the evolutionary tree of the Y DNA and of the mitochondrial DNA, which are the maternal and paternal lines. And so they've given them a haplogroup is sort of what the word that they use. And so African haplogroups are typically A if you're male for the Y DNA, or for women it's L, begins with L. And outside of that, like if you go into the Americas, the Native Americans, I think it's I don't remember what the females is, but the males is A, B, C, and D. They all start with A, B, and C, or no, it's the females, A, B, C, and D, and then, which is very similar to what you see in Asia. So it kind of gives credence to the to the migration of Asians over the Bering Strait into North and South America. So
well, but
those designations are called haplogroups. That's
okay.
what they're called.
I think a lot of people will find out that they have African ancestry because according to white archaeologists, the oldest bones that they've ever found were African, and the second were I don't know if it's Chinese or Asian, but those are the oldest bones known to man that they have ever uncovered.
I just want to add on that point, because just to make it clear, the consensus of the scientific community is that the origins of humanity is Africa.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
It's not just
we all have origins back to Africa.
Right.
So
before we run out of time, I'm going to make sure I give you the opportunity for those who want to know about your book, who want to buy your book. Where can we get your book from? Is there websites for people who want to follow? Contact you or whatever.
So the book is available on Amazon.com, and you can
hold it up one more time so everybody can see it.
And it's there's an ebook or a paperback version on Amazon.
Okay.
If any of your readers live in Brooklyn, it's also available at Greenlight bookstores in Brooklyn.
Okay.
So.
Do you have a website or ways if somebody wanted to contact you?
You can go to. I have a website, johnaarons.net is my genealogy website.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you can go there and you can contact me that way directly. Yep.
Okay. And Bob, was you going to say one more? Did you have something else to add, or?
Most of the discussion I came in late, so you'll forgive me. Most of the discussion I was privy to focused on genetic testing as a way of establishing genealogy, and I know Marvin alluded to, and him and I have discussed more fully, more traditional genealogical methods that focus on uncovering documentary evidence.
Right.
And I'm curious to know if you have used these two methods in conjunction to kind of maybe eliminate some of the uncertainty.
Absolutely. In fact, I have a really kind of good story for that. Perfect answer. Perfect story. So when my grandmother passed away in '97, and my grandfather was already dead, we got all of her documents, and we found my grandfather's, whose name was also John Aarons, found his birth certificate, except the name of his mother was not the name that we knew to be his mother. The name on the birth certificate.
There's a lot of drama.
The birth certificate, like my great grandmother, which would be my grandfather's mother, her name is Lena Bowman, and she's always been, my father's and my aunt's grandmother, Lena Bowman. They knew her, they lived with her, just like you would any other grandmother. So you can imagine the surprise when you find out that on the birth certificate the name is Emma Bonds. And we're like, well, who's Emma Bonds? And the birth certificate indicated that it was a legitimate birth, so they were supposedly married. So my grandfather was born in 1912. As of the 1910 census, my grandfather, or my great-grandfather and great-grandmother, John Aarons and Lena Bowman, were still married. They were still legally married. In 1915, looking at 1916, looking at documentary evidence, they remarried, which means that sometime between 1910 and 1916, they got a divorce. And with this, my grandfather being born in 1912 with this name Emma Bonds, it seemed like that was the problem. There was the story. So I went to Toledo. This is where my family was from, Toledo, and found the documents. And on the original birth certificate, actually, his name wasn't even on the original birth certificate. In the late 1930s, Lena and my grandfather, John, I'm from a long line of John Aarons, so there's a lot of Johns. They went to the courthouse because they had to update his birth certificate because it didn't have his name on it, and he had to register for the draft for World War II. So they updated it and they put his name on it, but Lena did not correct the name of the mother, although she did sign it as being the mother of this child. So I went through the court records, and I found in the courthouse in Toledo, which is a great resource, going to courts and looking through criminal records and civil records. I just basically got all of the records that had my family's name on them, and I found the divorce record. So they were divorced actually in 1915, 3 years after my grandfather was born, and then in 1916 they remarried. But in the divorce papers, Lena, she mentioned that these children were her biological children that she had with her husband, so it supported that. Still didn't explain who Emma Bonds was. And then as it turns out, the day that their divorce was final, my great-grandfather married somebody else. And her name was not Emma Bonds either. So we still don't know who Emma Bonds is. In the meantime,
we're not going to ask you how many wives you have.
I don't have during all this process, while I'm trying to figure out who Emma Bonds is, I actually started a blog called Finding Emma, and I came up with all kinds of great stories as to who this person might be. I was also taking a DNA test, and it turns out I have a DNA match to this woman who lives in Virginia. She was born in a small village in Germany, Lyman, Germany, and Lyman, Germany is the home village of Lena Bowman. So in order for me to be a cousin to this woman in Virginia, Lena Bowman, not some mystery woman, Emma Bonds, had to be the mother of my grandfather.
Right.
So combining the document research and the DNA research, you definitely can solve problems.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like I told you, like they must going through census.
Yeah.
Found out that my last name, my family, on my father's side, might be Hubbard instead of Woodson.
Exactly.
We're legally Woodson now, but I don't know where that. She's looking. My sister's researching all that part.
Right.
So, any last words I didn't ask you that you want people to know about the book, about the importance of ancestry? Or
I think the last thing I would like to say about the book is that I kind of start out with all of these people from different backgrounds with these different attitudes and ideas about who they are and who everybody else is. And so I use a little bit of colorful language, if you might say, saying well, this is a white girl. She's not going to respond to my emails, right? Mm-hmm. So, but at the end, I had all of them, sort of coming together and connecting. I don't want to give away the story, but showing that when you do work together, when you do sort of come, sort of break down those barriers and stop building walls, that you can really learn that the person sitting next to you, no matter what they look like, could be your cousin, and we're all related. We're all family, and we need to start respecting each other and seeing each other that way.
As long as I find out I'm not related to Donald Trump, I'm good. Like, somebody has to be off to my family.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, brother. You can't get away from it.
Somebody has to be off. Any last words, Marvin?
No, I really thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk on this subject. I thought it's a very important subject. I know.
And a lot of the
I did
people.
2,500. You have over 6,000.
I have like 6,500 people in my family tree.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
It's been very fascinating, and I've learned a lot, and I'll continue learning every day.
And I welcome you to come back to talk further.
Yeah.
You know, when you get further.
Absolutely.
I'm
actually working on another book. It's,
Right.
It'll be called The Census. It'll be out in December.
Okay.
It'll be similar in idea. It'll be help sort of guide people.
Now
to
the
read
census is what, 2020 next year?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we definitely would like to have you come back and speak specifically about the census, the importance of the census.
Absolutely.
That we want to educate people on the census, definitely. So
Absolutely. Look forward to that. Thank you very much, AJ.
Not a problem. Thank you both, and round of applause. Yes. Thank you. I just want to, so that portion of the show we were dealing with ancestry. Before we have our next guest come in, I do want to make a couple of announcements again that I didn't get a chance, that maybe some of y'all didn't hear the first time. Before we have our next guest come in, the funeral arrangement for Kenneth Chamberlain's daughter that I didn't get a chance going to be Thursday, April 18th. April 18th, closed casket wake 3 to 5, and the funeral will start at 5 at the Community Protestant Church, 1659 East Gun Hill Road in the Bronx, and there will be also Church. There's also a fundraiser / reception for the memorial celebration of the life for late Mount Vernonite Orlando Moore, one of the individuals who died in the Dominican Republic. That will be Tuesday, April 16th, 2019, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Steam House, which is located at 128 Gramerton Avenue, Mount Vernon. Donations are deeply appreciated. This is a fundraiser / reception, so they are raising money, and that's to celebrate the life of Orlando Moore. Donations are deeply appreciated. We definitely wanted to get those out. A couple other things, and I just wanted to shout out. I did talk about Tiger Woods and his historic win. So I came across, actually I think I found it on Cynthia's page. So Barack Obama actually wrote a letter to the family of Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle was the comedian. Nipsey Hussle. It's real short. He says, I've never met Nipsey, but I heard some of his music through my daughters, and after his passing, I had the chance to learn more about his transformation and his community work. While folks look at the Crenshaw neighborhood where he grew up and see only gangs, bullets, and despair, Nipsey saw potential. He saw hope. He saw a community that, even though it had flaws, taught him to always keep going. His choice to invest in the community rather to ignore it, to build a skills training center and a co-working space in Crenshaw to uplift to build a Ontario-American community. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, ERITREAN. Community to set an example for young people to follow is a legacy worth celebrating. I hope his memory inspires more good work in Crenshaw and communities like it. Michelle and I send our sympathies to Lauren and a legacy worth celebrating. I hope his memory Cross and the entire good work. I don't know the last name of that family. To all those who loved Nipsey. I can never pronounce his last name. But I just wanted to share that. I thought that was cool. A former president to do. And showing the importance of what Nipsey was trying to do. Me and Israel Williams, school board trustee, we were having a conversation the other day. He would walk past my house about our community. Oh, I didn't put it back on. We were having. Thank you very much, Bob. We were having a conversation the other day on the those who give back and are willing to die for their community, to fix their community, and then we were reminiscing about all, cities like Mount Vernon and all over Crenshaw, all over South Central LA, all of the future leaders and people like that we lose to street violence, and they never get a chance to grow into whatever it is they're going to grow into. I mean, if you look at anybody's life, if you look at Malcolm X's early life, he had got killed, then we would never have had the Malcolm X that we all know. You know what I'm saying? When if Malcolm Little had got killed, so a lot of times there's a lot of people, and I wrote a story which really pissed a lot of older people off. What if Tupac and Biggie were like our Malcolm and Martin would have grew up to be the Malcolm and Martin of this generation? Of course, a lot of people did not want to hear those names put in the same sentence together. But I was just saying, who knows what they would have turned out to be had they lived? You know what I'm saying? And the work that they would have done with their celebrity and all that. So that was just a point, not to say to compare them and that they walk in the same. People couldn't get past that point, but they missed the message. So, I applaud the Nipsey Hussles out there who want to better their neighborhood. The people in Mount Vernon and Yonkers, and that want to pick up the neighborhood that they grew up in and make it a better place. And they did not leave the neighborhood, but they stood there and fought for the neighborhood. There's a lot of us in Mount Vernon that are staying in Mount Vernon on purpose to fight for the neighborhood and other communities around the country. You had a comment that you wanted to add.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get into our next guest. I know they can hear me, so we're going to get
in the wake of Nipsey Hussle's death. I know there was a lot of speculation, absent a conclusive police report, as to who his assailants were and what were the motivations. And I was disturbed to see a pattern of thinking that I think the African American community in particular has to resist, and that is the temptation to always want to attribute misfortunes in our communities to unseen conspiratorial forces without acknowledging the real role that members of our own community play in our demise. There are the struggle that Americans all across the nation are having is that there are powerful forces, distant forces outside of our community that we can't do very much to control. But the one thing that we can do is to hold a conversation amongst ourselves where we insist on a higher standard of comportment. And the reality is, anyone who lives in a hood, in African, whatever hood you live in, the reality is that the first group of people responsible for much of this violence is members of our own community. And I mention this because I don't know why people want to try to connect Nipsey Hussle's death to a conspiracy to undo the legacy of Dr. Sebi or whatever, when the starting point for all criticisms that reflect on what happened is the penchant for violence amongst some members of our community, especially too many young brothers who's in gangs, who are indiscriminate with the violence. And the first line of criticism needs to be made to those brothers, and less so sisters, who create a climate of fear and hostility in the communities that are driving people away. Because so many folks are abandoning our communities, we are abandoning our communities because the level of violence is frightful and people don't want to put at risk, if not their own quality of living, certainly the quality of living of the ones that they love. It's very difficult if you have resources to justify raising a family in a community where you feel that you have a strong or good chance of not making it home because someone shot you or stabbed you when you was just minding your business. And I think we need to be honest about that. We're not going to be able to grow as a people. The United States, America as a whole, cannot grow unless everyone has the courage to answer to their own shortcomings. and to demand a higher standard. Not just from America as a whole, but Black America needs to do the same thing when looking at what has transpired, because there are things that we can do. And to hold ourselves accountable is not necessarily a conservative thing. It is to say that this is within our power, and there is something that we can do about it. So that's my thought.
So I want to introduce our next two guests. Thank you, Nas Duncan, for referring them to us. Let me see. We have Lisa Clark Norman. Is that correct? Licensed professional realtor. And we have Hope Hollingsworth. How do you say your last name?
Coaxum.
Okay. And pull up your mics close to you so everybody can hear. You have access to the computer if you need to get on Facebook or anything, let people know where you're at and everything. You can do all that social media stuff if you want. And you're a part of the Mothers Support Group. Is that correct? Is that?
It's the Mothers 2016, but yes, it is a support group for mothers.
Okay, okay. Now, I know, so I don't know, like I know Na's story. I know her son was killed. Is that a similar, y'all have had relatives? Well, first let me give you official welcome.
Thank you. So, the Mothers 2016 is a support group for mothers who have lost children under various circumstances.
Okay.
So myself and Lisa have lost a child. They're not the same circumstances as Nas, but unfortunately we do suffer in the same way when it comes to losing a child, which is one of the most unnatural experiences in anyone's life as a parent. So as mothers, it's very difficult for us.
I can only imagine. Last week I told the story. I was coming back from a rally from for the young man who got killed in Brooklyn. He supposedly had Shaheed Vassal. So I rode down there with Kenneth Chamberlain. And on the way back from Brooklyn, he found out his daughter died in a car crash the night before. And that's what I was reading. That they're having a funeral arrangements. That was one of the people I was reading about just now. And I'm riding back with him, and I'm only imagining how it would feel. You know, I lost my mother in 2014, and then now to lose my only child, my daughter. You know what I mean? Like, to something like that, I can't even imagine how it would feel. I mean, you know, so, you know, this, as mothers, y'all gave birth to the child.
Yes.
You know, the child's like part of your heart, you know, whatever the situation is. So I can, my hat off to all of you, and I can't, you know, I'm not even gonna lie and say I know that pain. Like, you know, there's no way I could actually know that pain that y'all feel.
I appreciate you saying that, because a lot of times we do get people who say, you know, I can only
I can only imagine what you feel or
right.
what you went through. You know, the loss of a child, or the loss of anyone, you know, that's dear to you,
Right.
is hurtful.
Right.
However, there is not a word that I can describe the pain, you know, of what we go through on a daily basis, you know, things of that nature. So when we come together, we come inseparable with each other. You know, we honor our children, we talk about them, we cry, we laugh, we can yell, you know, we're able to let it out.
Yeah, and I think the most important part is that you're around other women who truly understand what you're going through.
Yes.
Right. Another listener who is a mother who lost her child to gun violence, Donna Nolan in Yonkers, her son was up and coming baseball player. Had just got signed to Oakland A's. She said, "Hello, mother." She's listening to y'all right now. So
hello, Donna.
yeah.
How are
Donna.
you? Yes.
Yeah, she's been on the show. She's a friend of the show a lot. So, you know, I've had a lot of mothers tell their stories. You know, and for those, like the person who killed her son was found, but in our situation and many other situations, they're fighting for justice for their loved one.
Yes.
And we've continued to keep, even Kenneth Chamberlain, he never mourned for his father who got killed by the White Plains Police Department 7 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I remember
because he
that.
continues to fight.
Yes,
And now his daughter just died. Like, you know, but he's never mourned. That's why I said his daughter died. he's never mourned his father because he's been fighting for justice the whole time. My mother passed in 2014, and while it still hurts, I did have the mourning part. I did, it wasn't, hers was it wasn't like the White Plains Police Department shot my mother. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I've been fighting, and I still see the cops in White Plains walking the streets every day. Like, I can't even imagine that. So we have several people that have come through and told those kind of stories, and there's nothing like the loss of a mother's grief of losing a child, regardless of what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a continuous pain because you have to live your life each day knowing that your child will never return.
Right.
It's the birthdays, the anniversaries,
Right.
the holidays. And I think just having a group and being able to support each other and not having, a lot of people might feel like, why wouldn't you go see a counselor or a psychologist or psychiatrist? But for us, it just felt natural to be able to have that conversation and a support group where there are women and mothers there who, like I said, who do understand.
And you know that you're not the only one feeling this, and you're not
That's
in it
right.
alone. So, what? When did you start? When did the group start? How did the group come about?
It started in 2016. I produced a documentary called The Diary of a Mother, and I reached out to. It's funny because I met Lisa, totally different circumstances, but and found out that she had lost her son. And there were five women that were involved, including myself. And we did this documentary. And then afterwards, after the crying and expressing various emotions, it felt good to be around these women discussing what happened. And then afterward, Lisa called me and she was like, it would be great if we could, get some sort of group together to where women could, support one another and do all types of things, not just, this support group where there's, grieving, but movies or, shows and plays and things of that nature. So after that, it just came about, it flourished into what it is today. It was definitely a process, that's for sure.
Yes.
Here she goes.
Oh, nice.
How are you? I was wondering where you were.
I thought I had the wrong place. This is not the station.
Yes.
Hello.
Let me see. We have a little echo in the building. Turn everything down a little bit. Yes. So welcome, Nas Duncan, to the show. It's been on the show before. Feel free to pull the mic close to you, and you can.
Hello. How are you doing, Westchester?
Yes. So
Nas, how are you?
Hi, Dr. Bob. Hello.
Oh, great.
Hello.
Good to
Hello, how are
Hi.
you? You look absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. So now you said y'all do other things. We'll talk about some of the things. That's what we were at. I'm sorry.
So we just didn't want it to be a support group where we're
Just crying
just
all
crying,
the time.
just grieving. We want to be able to do different things with the mothers. We've gone to breakfast, and we've gone to me and Lisa, shows and movies, and so we want to continue that. We want to just encourage other mothers.
We also took flowers,
Yes.
a plant, to other mothers who have recently lost their child, and things of that nature. So we've done some things as well. We just don't want to be known as a sad group that just cry all the time. We want to bring some encouragement to each other, inspiration. When you feel in a moment, be able to have a place where you can either chat into. We have a chat. You can chat into it, text someone. Just a support system.
Right. And again, since I'm close to the Kenneth Chamberlain situation, I've gone with him, and I've seen him deal with other families who, again, have lost relatives, specifically at gun violence from the police. And I've seen how his just being there has been very supportive. And I've heard other families, like, I met a Kai Gurley, that's the guy who got shot, in the Pink Houses. I met his mother. And I see how all these other, Eric Garner's family, all these other people draw on his strength, because 7 years he has not given up the fight, and some of them said the reason they have not given up is because of him. And just I see how firsthand, like, being there for other people when you're dealing with your own grief, being there for other people. One is therapeutic a little bit for you, a little bit, and then two, how instrumental that is to helping other people.
Yeah, I think that it's important, even for us. We've gone to funerals, which for us, I mean, it could be extremely difficult, but to be there when that mother sees you, when she knows who you are, and she knows that you understand that day what that feels like for her, that encourages her, and she's appreciative of that support. Like you said, although you're grieving yourself, but just being there for somebody else, I think that's the most important part for us to continue to do. And we don't want to have any other mothers join our group. We really don't. But we're here.
But unfortunately, they will. It's not like like Hope just said, we don't want them, just come on. But, it just, like I said, it's undescribable. And when you do have the support, we seeing other mothers starting to come out a little bit more. It's helping. They're talking more. For me, what I do is I honor my son every day, and this is the month that I lost him.
Okay.
So I lost my son to a heart illness. Okay. So I surround myself with hearts. I got a heart around my neck, hearts on my fingers, and I surround myself around a bunch of hearts.
Okay.
So what I do is the day that he passed, I go and purchase something and take it down to the hospital and let the social worker give it to a family.
Right.
So that's my way of dealing.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have gone to hospitals last 2 years ago where we donated some items. I think it was right around the time holiday time. We went to the hospital and made sure that we did something that was special.
Yes.
For me, I lost my son. My son served in the military, 9 years in the military.
Okay.
And he was killed in Afghanistan. And I honor my son every day. I work with the veterans. I do a lot of volunteer work with the veterans. I also do a tie drive every year, and we give like a tie to veterans at different events, and that tie represents my son. My son loved to wear ties. So I think that that's really important, is a way for you to feel a little bit better is to somehow honor your child, and to make sure that no one ever forgets that your child lived.
Right. My mother, she was diagnosed. I came up here to take care of her, and she died a few months later, stage 4 cancer. She used to help a lot of people. If your house is in foreclosure, or she would counsel, she would tell you how to save your house. And she was on a local radio show for a women's group she belonged to, and they sent me the audio. For a couple of years, I held it like my own personal thing. I didn't want to share it with nobody, but I wanted to bless, like, my mother. I shared it on Black Westchester 1 year for her birthday. I just wanted her words to be still able to bless other people who were in foreclosure and in those situations. And I've talked to a couple of people, and they've actually used some of the things, and they contacted me that my mother's suggestion. So that was my way of sharing and helping, deal with it. But it took me like 2 or 3 years before I could actually share that with people. Like, that was my own personal. I didn't want to, like, every time I needed to hear her voice, I was able to, like, play that little, and I didn't want to share that with nobody. I wanted to keep that close, but I did like last year, I finally did. And then I wrote her a poem for Mother's Day that year, and I shared it on at Mother's Day in the paper. So that was my way of honoring my mom. So, I can relate on that level,
Yes.
I think that's really, really important. It really is.
Yeah, so
and it's at your time.
Right.
Everything is at your time, and I tell everyone I speak to, I didn't just jump into it.
Right.
It's all at your time. Once you start to find out what helps you,
right,
then you will go towards that direction.
Right.
It's all and go towards it.
I felt also another part, we started Black Westchester, but I actually was creating it on her bedside. Like when my friend Damien came up with the idea, she helped so many people in the community. I felt like doing this is her passing me a baton, you know, and me helping this. I do this. I don't do what she did, but this is my way of like still helping my community, you know, kind of like carrying on her legacy, like, you know, so. That was that.
That is definitely, you honor her and by
Right.
helping and blessing other people.
Right.
So that's what we're doing.
Right.
That's something that they helped me with.
Pull your mic closer to you.
I said that's something that they helped me with. I was struggling through the bereavement of Junior's death, and I did therapy and things of that nature, but I was still I'm still struggling. But I was really, really going through a battle within myself and several things of not trying to, that was holding me back from moving forward. And someone at my job happened to tag me. I didn't know them. They tagged me and said, I think this would be good for you to go to. And for some reason, I was driven. Like nothing was stopping me. I'll find every excuse under the sun not to come out my house. But I was like, I have to make this meeting. I have to make this meeting because people been telling me like therapy is good, but you need a bereavement group. You need a group to talk to some people who've been through what you've been through. It's different talking to people in the street than sitting with the mothers that can say, this happened to me. They understand the not wanting to eat, the not wanting to sleep, the not wanting to live, the have no. They've been there, and they embraced me with that. Because when I came to them, I was like in a mental mess. You know, I don't show publicly what I go through, but I conceal a lot. But when I'm within myself, you know, a lot comes out, and they instantly made me feel comfortable to share. You know, to break down. It's okay to break down. Don't let nobody tell you it's okay. You do this at your own time.
Right.
You know, excuse me. So it extremely it hit me like, okay, they're teaching me, stop grieving over your son, celebrate your son. Because I couldn't talk about Junior without tears before. I would break down, like just hearing his name. I'm still not picture ready. No, I can't go to where he was murdered at. I'm not there yet. But I'm taking baby steps. And with the help of these women, they really, really, and I thank them so much because they're doing what Mama I Am was doing. You know, and they really, really like helped me, and so like to be able to. Somebody at my job said to me, you know, I noticed you talk more about Junior. You're not you know crying or breaking down. And I even had a little joke with him, but I told him, and I always remember them saying, celebrate him. I have his chain as well. My son bought me for Christmas, and it has Junior's face on top of the world on it, his little logo, and it's celebrate him. And you know, the double try to mess with me from time to time, you know, and then I got a lot of stuff going on because I'm never going to stop fighting for justice. Get that twisted. Where the camera at? Don't get it twisted. I am not stopping fighting for justice for my son. It's just that I have to heal me.
Right.
I have to heal me to be strong enough to fight for him and fight without breaking down, you know, without being angry at people or taking what I'm going through and putting it on other people.
Right.
You know, I want it to be clean and done the right way.
Right.
Not seeming vindictive or nothing like that, you know, whereas it's just right now I'm in a place where I'm getting better day by day. I have highs, I have lows, but I got numbers I can call. I got to make those meetings, and I don't care if it's 2 meetings or it's 1 meeting, you know, or it's 5, or it's 2 people there, or it's 1 person. My uncle is in recovery. He got something like 20-something years in recovery. But I used to hang out with him and his NA people a lot. And one thing I listen to them say is that a meeting is a meeting as long as there's 1 person there.
Right.
And so whether it's 1 person or 2 people, I still got to release, because you got to release this stuff.
Absolutely.
You have to. I realized I tried to do it on my own. I tried to close up, hibernate. All it does is make you go crazy within yourself.
Well, I just want to say thank you to these ladies here for being there for her, because I've been on the other end of that phone for hours and hours and hours, sometimes just to listen, sometimes with a prayer or a comforting word, and I know.
Let me vent.
Yeah, so I thank y'all for having a group like that and for helping.
And like Naz said, we didn't know each other, but instantly, when she walked through the door, it was like
a connection.
There was an immediate connection. That was it. It was like you're here, not just us for you, but you're also here for us.
Right.
Right. You helped us too.
You help us too. Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
I wanted to let you know that you help us too, and we inspire each other. So we're there to help each other.
Yes.
We listen to you. You listen to us.
And it's a small world because we found a lot of little connections. Like a real small world. Like wow.
So let me ask: is there, for anybody watching this and they're in that situation and they think they're going through it alone, is there a website or is there a way to contact a group or something?
Yeah, we have an email address, and the email address is themothers2016@gmail.com. Okay. So if anyone, yes, we also have a Facebook page, which is the Mothers 2016. Okay. So anyone that, or if you know a family member that's going through something similar, definitely have them reach out to us. We do have our meetings monthly, and we do put it up on our page on Facebook. And every year in September, we do a butterfly ceremony. And we'll be doing that this year. Hopefully, if not in September, the end of August. But we'll definitely put that information out there, and we'll, connect with you so that
Absolutely.
you can, let people know. And that's also very soothing and calming. And I won't say healing because you don't heal from this.
Absolutely.
But it is something where you feel like I'm around other people who understand, and it definitely does a lot for me that day.
Now, is it just mothers or fathers going through it, or a sibling? That's it.
Yes, siblings, fathers.
My uncle attended the first meeting with me, and he enjoyed it.
Yes,
he really did.
Now, the butterfly ceremony, I just like to elaborate a little bit on that. You get to release a live butterfly. Mm-hmm. So, we do, it's great, Hope, she coordinated at City Hall, Unity Fountain in Yonkers, but you're able to release that butterfly.
Yeah,
so
it's
very
amazing.
Symbolic.
It's very symbolic for rebirth. So we definitely, fathers and siblings. I have a daughter who, unfortunately, she lost her brother. So, my daughter goes through her moments, and Naz has her children, and Lisa has her children. So they're not, they're family. So it's for all of us.
Both of my co-hosts, Lorraine Lopez, who's not here today, and Dr. Bob, if you don't mind me saying, have both lost brothers to gun violence. They both each lost two brothers. One in Yonkers, and other in yours, and hers was in Yonkers. So we cover this a lot. And that's why I was asking, like, he knows from a sibling, like those were his older brothers, and same thing with Lorraine. She knows as a sibling what that feels like.
Right. And it's funny because my kids are stronger than me. They really are. I think that they help me. We go through our ups and downs as a family, but it's especially my surviving son. I say that, but he really, he's strong. I've seen him double up and become a man real quick when he lost his brother, and I'm proud of him as well because he stepped up to the plate, and I needed him to do that because I need him. People feel like you go through these situations of losing a child, and you can just move on. You can't. I try to explain to people when they say, I can't understand what you're going through. I said, it's different losing your mom because you lost a piece of your heart. When you lose your child, you lost a piece of your soul.
Right.
Where that child came from is where that pain is every day, and it goes through your whole body. So it's no one could ever imagine, and I would never wish this. I don't have enemies, but they may be my enemy. I'm not nobody's enemy. But wish this on no one, and I watch TV shows and I see like documentaries and different, shows having interviews with people who lost it, and it's like, when soon I'm watching, I'm like, I resonate with that, like for real. And I'll start crying, like I know her pain, like, I know her pain, and it doesn't matter if you lost your child to gun violence, if you lost your losing anybody,
any loved one,
you know what I mean. But losing a child is like so different, and I try to put a lot of my energy into Junior's daughter. I feel like I'm her father now. I'm gonna do everything to make sure that she's okay as long as I'm breathing air. And keep fighting. She's 6.
6, wow.
She's 6. She look like she's 9. She's tall, just like him. She looks just like him. She acts just like him. She stands. She sits, and I can just watch her. When she's around, I have no sad feelings. It's weird. When she's around, I have no anxiety attacks, no flashbacks, no PTSD. Everything just goes away when she's around me. And I stay in touch with her. And I bought her an iPad just to FaceTime because that makes me cool. Just being there, I'm close enough to her.
Absolutely.
But I'd say this because I heard somebody the other day was talking and they was angry, and they said, I don't need nobody. I said, you're a liar. Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs somebody. You will wither away trying to be alone. I don't care. It might not be just somebody to talk to, that ear, just that one person, but everybody needs somebody. But when somebody say, I don't need nobody, I don't care how much billions you got, you need somebody. Just somebody. And it don't always got to be in the form of your family, because I have support from family, but my family is just my family. The support I have is like out here, and that's not my family. But they're my supportive family. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to always be loyal to my supportive family.
Absolutely. Bob, any questions, any comments?
Yeah, I know that much of your mission focuses on reaching out to women and other folks who are in mourning, sort of on a personal basis. I was wondering, though, if during the course of your work, you have happened upon issues, policy issues that you wish our local elected officials anywhere would take into consideration that would help those who are in mourning to better confront their pain and process it. Would take into consideration that would help.
I will say that as far as local officials go, they've been very receptive. So if there is a time where there is a parent who has lost a child, it's I won't say that the reach out is directly. If I know about it, then I'll ask, is it okay? Can we get information in order to go to that?
Okay, I see.
That person's house or visit that person. And what's best is to give our number. Let them know that we're here for them if they need to speak with us, or if they want to talk to us, or if we can visit. That's the best way for us to do it. But I will say that yes, local officials have been very receptive, and then sometimes it's just who you know. Yonkers and Mount Vernon are very small in regard to somebody that knows somebody
Absolutely.
that knows somebody.
Absolutely.
So when something does occur, that somebody that reaches out. Listen, I know you ladies do this, and I have a mom, and unfortunately, she lost her son or her daughter. Is it possible? This is her number, and then we're able to do that. But if it comes down to the local officials, I haven't run across any problems in regard to that.
Okay, and not necessarily to ask you to highlight problems.
Yeah, no.
Things that might be done to enable you to better carry out your mission. But it sounds like that is one excellent.
It helps. It does help.
That
and like I said, most of the times it's somebody who knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. But if it comes down to it helps. You're in an environment where those kind of local officials come into play, then I mean we haven't come across anything like that, and sometimes it's just a matter of a reach out, like with Naz. So, but and one thing that we're not political.
Right.
But you know what would be good is if these officials, because I had to find this by way of somebody like that talked to me at my job and seen the mess that I was in and tell me. You see what I'm saying? So, but if they need to give this more exposure, especially with different kind of things, I'm seeing death more than ever. I'm almost to the point I don't like Facebook. Facebook has become one big running obituary. So I try to refrain from it sometimes.
I've
I like to go on Instagram where I can shop. You know what I mean?
6 weeks, like.
Yeah, but there's people out there that not only did they lose their kids, there's people out there that lost family members. For every obituary, for every post we see that's talking, you know, you're giving your condolences to somebody, that's somebody hurting. And they might not be saying it, but that's somebody's family member that's going through what we going through. And maybe they need that. Whether it's their brother, uncle, father, you know, child, some people need it. People lose their mother in it. And you know, I just lost somebody real close to me, and it's my best friend's mom, and she's like me, but for her mom.
And say the same way.
You know what I'm saying?
I have somebody, y'all have spoke on social media. Donna Nolan is here. She wanted to meet you. She came to the studio just to meet you because she had never met the one that had lost her son.
How you doing?
So yeah, come in.
Donna Nolan and her husband.
Yes.
Yes.
These girls right here. Sit down, Dr. Bob. Don't sit down. These girls are my.
Yes. So I got a message. She said, "I'm outside. I want to meet Nas. I never met Nas."
These two right here.
I'm getting out little bit by little bit.
Yonkers Raceway Diner. It's where we first sat and talked and laughed.
And that was breakfast.
That was breakfast.
We love to eat.
And
we love to eat.
Glad I bumped that one. They helped me so much. I mean, I reach out to people, like I talk to you online, and you know, and I talk to, like, people will talk to me, but it's like I say okay, but I just sit and I waddle in my own. You know, I deal with it within myself, but even some people, like I met on Instagram, one lady, I buy some products from her, and I just happened to see one of her lives saying how she lost her son, and so I was telling her how, you know, because I see how she is, like she's living, I mean, she looks so vibrant, and I'm saying to myself, how? Because I'm a mess. Like, I don't think that, I'm looking for justice, yes. But do I think justice is going to make me better? No. I miss my child dearly. Dearly. Like, nothing's going to change that. I'll feel good to know that that person is apprehended, but it's not bringing my child back.
That's right.
It's not taking those memories away. It's not. I miss my child.
That's what Kenneth Chamberlain said. They were saying that he was only out for the money. He said, I would give them all
every dime.
All the money for my father. For my father to have my father.
You know what money does? Money takes, and you get people that capitalize off of their kids, you know, or death or whatever. I feel like money make you forget for that moment. You know what I'm saying? It make you forget for that moment. But and there's no amount of money in the world. Strip me dry, let me look like a crazy person in the street, but have my son next to me.
Right.
You know, call me what you want. I got my child. You know what I mean? So there's no dollar sign that could ever replace or make me go fade to black on my child. Ever. So there's nothing you can offer me. There's nothing I want. Just somebody had, you know, reached out to me and they wanted to donate something into my Miami and all of that. I said, you know something, right now I haven't really been focusing on that. You tell them to support me by supporting Justice for Junior. That's the support I need right now. I don't need no money. I don't need no accolades. I don't do this because I want people to like me or to say, oh, Naz did this. No, Naz don't care. Naz just wants your help. with that. You know what I mean? Thank you. And I said, you know, be that kind of supporter. Or when I do have something for Junior, you can donate to the memorial, because I'm trying to do that. But it's like I'm at a space in my life where for every 2 steps ahead, I get pulled 2 steps back. Like I have a cloud over me. But I'm saying to myself, I'm starting to do some mental thinking. Is that cloud me? Am I my own cloud?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So I got to clear that up.
And Bob, to answer your question, Cynthia, who is also, I guess, part of Mama I Am,
yes.
Cynthia Turnquest-Jones, a former co-host of the show, she said one issue is when elected officials state victim assistance comes up and they offer to pay half of the funeral or something, but then they stipulate they will not pay the other half until they prove that the victim wasn't a menace to society. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like an issue that with elected officials. Yeah.
There's so many ins and outs and all that stuff that people don't.
Right.
They don't know, and they make it out like, oh, you know, oh, well, he was a victim of a crime. Well, we know that, and that they're going to do all this for you. But what they put you through, and just like Nas said, she could get justice. And I've had people say to me, well, you got justice.
Right.
Okay, yeah, they're not out on the street.
Right.
They can't do this to another family, but it doesn't change the fact that I still get up every morning and say, I got to do this again. I have to.
While you're here real quick, I saw your son on the news this week or last week, and we're talking about, he was at a baseball park, he was on News 12, and he was talking about doing something for the kids.
We went to St. Patrick's Cathedral yesterday because the Live on New York, the donor program, so they do a mass.
Oh, right, and he got to meet some of the people that the organs.
We met the guy who got his lungs, Jerry, the guy who got his pancreas. We've been able to meet them and have established a relationship with them, and it's bittersweet, you know.
Right.
It's again, I first time I've ever met her, I heard her story. I talked to Jess, and she wants justice. She wants answers. She wants to know who it is. Not that it's going to change her situation, but you know what?
Right.
I want them under the jail. I don't want to know who it is. I want them under the jail. You know, I want them to do the Green Mile walk, the whole 9. I have no mercy because they did not have no mercy on my child. And that might be a bitter side of me talking. And yet, you know what I'm saying? The spiritual side of me, I pray for them.
Right.
I pray for you.
Right.
Because you to do that and not think of what you're doing to people, you're a sick individual.
Right.
And you're sick and you're not seeking help.
Right.
You know, like you're sick from the root, from the core. And but they're gonna get caught.
Well,
I say that with comfort.
I know we also had set up Mount Vernon Families for Justice, and we had a big rally, and it had other family members in Mount Vernon. And one of the complaints from some people were like, "Oh, well, their son or their brother was this." I said, "You know what? I don't care if he was the biggest menace to society. That still doesn't take away from the grief of the mother." You understand what I'm saying? That was her son.
You know
what I'm saying? Regardless, it doesn't take away from that grief. And I tried to articulate that within words and having you on and different ways. The grief of a mother is just it doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, I mean, that's your son. You know what I mean? So. We shouldn't even have that discussion. A lot of people, when they live in the hood, a lot of people are involved in a lot of things. Some of us were, and we don't do it no more. Some people never got out of it. But I mean,
the only one can judge is the Almighty above. Right. So nobody can judge, and all the people. That's another thing that irritates me with social media. Everybody is like these analyzers,
right?
And people got to stop that because that's dangerous because of your thoughts, and you don't really realize how many people you have following you.
So
if you're spewing out that, people's believe in it. And instead of, I research everything. You tell me something, I'm Googling it, I'm getting down to the root of it so that I don't look like an idiot. But I see a lot of idiots comment, sue me. You know what I'm saying? I see it, and the comments be like, idiot comments.
Right.
But I don't feed into the buffoonery and the clowning.
And you can't.
I really and truthfully don't. And sometimes some conversations will get so like irritating to me. I have to chime in. Because to stop you from looking like an idiot, let's reel you back in. Because right now, you these are not real lawyers. These people are just giving their opinions, and opinions like a doorknob. Everybody have one. So who are you to say that what that person said is right? Everything I say is not right, but I make sure I think before I speak, so that I'm just not babbling.
So Lorraine Lopez, my co-host that's not here, Lorraine Lopez, she said, "Hello, Donna, my love," and she said, comment on what you said. She said, her exact words is, "I prayed for the fuckers that killed my brother, and I found peace. I found my peace." Yeah,
you pray for it, and I'm praying for them, and I'm praying that they get it. Yeah. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I found peace.
Patience. I'm starting to grow those. Nothing too fast is good anyway. I'd rather God take His time and deal with it. And let that person enjoy their moment because it's gonna be short-lived.
Any last words about the organization? Again, website, Facebook. Say all that again. How people can reach y'all and all that.
So again, it's the Mothers 2016. Our email address is themothers2016@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page, which is the Mothers 2016, and we do try to update information as it comes to us, and when we're organizing different events. Our butterfly ceremony, we're definitely going to be doing that again this year, toward the end of August or in September. And we're just mothers who are grieving, mothers who want to support other mothers, and we just want to be an encouragement for other mothers or siblings or family members. We just want to be here. We're a listening board. We also are there to support you to speak. We have a chat. So we're just here for you if anyone wants to, come out or contact us, or if they know someone. And then, Lisa, what did you say? I'm sorry.
And closing.
Pretty much, you said it all in terms of the communication. We're on Facebook. Usually when I hear of someone with the loss of a child, I do reach out to them on social media platforms. I mean, we're on Instagram. You can find us.
Now for someone who is watching this, and says, I want to support y'all, is there a way for them to show some support, make a donation or something of that nature to support your organization?
Absolutely. They can send us an email or send us emails, contact us, and we can discuss the further details of that.
Okay. Because I know sometimes people are like, I want to support that, so. And we need to support our organizations. We need to support, we need to support each other. And we actually do. We really do. I mean, I speak on that all the time. We have to support our organizations and our businesses. We have to support each other. Our community, within our community, we have to support. We can't always, we're always looking for something on the outside to come in. Sometimes there's so much we can do within ourselves, within our community. If I support your organization, I always support your organization, you support us, and we support them.
Each other.
You know what I'm saying? It's just so much more that we all could do and within our power. So that's why, I try to extend as much to, with the airwaves or the paper or whatever to get the word out about organizations and stuff that are doing the work that y'all do. I congratulate y'all with the work that y'all do, and I have an open door policy. If y'all ever need to come back and discuss some issue,
Lisa actually has another little project going on reform. So that's a whole
criminal justice reform.
It's really prison reform.
Okay, we deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
We had some criminal justice reform activists. We also had the commissioner from Valhalla who's doing a lot of reform inside the county institution, and we had some people were speaking up about the getting rid of the cash bail before that came through. We had like a 3-part series dealing with that. But that's constantly something we constantly are talking about and dealing with. So anytime you want to come, or if you ever just feel that you want to write something, I will definitely put it in the paper or whatever, just whatever. So, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Yes. So pretty much what I like to do is to definitely reduce recidivism, to really stop any more crimes from happening.
Okay.
I mean, if it's anything that I could do to deter you from going to shoot somebody or hurt somebody, to deter you over this way, that's really what I'm looking forward to, is to stop it, do something about it. We can't keep saying we want it to stop. We have to put something in place to stop it. So I've been helping a lot of people. They've been getting jobs. They've been changing their lives. Just stay away from the streets. I'm trying to make it safe, things of that nature. But it takes all of us to do this, not just one person.
Right. So, Lorraine asked, and I know you covered it, but she probably didn't hear. Like, if your mother had passed away, can a sibling sister participate in your group? Like, if the mother's not there, can the sister? Can she participate as a sibling?
I know what you're saying. Yes. We wouldn't. We're not there to turn away anyone who's grieving. So yes.
She participate as a sibling.
I know what
okay.
you're saying,
With that, we're coming to the close of the show. I want to thank everybody who's tuned in. Everybody, I didn't get to everybody's questions, but thank you for your questions. This show will be able to be seen later on blackwestchester.com. It'll be up later tonight. Again, I want to also uplift 2 things real quick again. The funeral arrangements for Kenneth Chamberlain's daughter. Let me pull that up one more time. The funeral arrangements for his daughter Shanice is Thursday, April 18th. Closed casket wake 3 to 5, and funeral services at 5. Community Protestant Church, 1659 East Gun Hill Road, the Bronx. I will have that all over our social media. And also, I want to bring attention to the fundraiser / reception for the memorial celebration of life of the late Mount Vernonite Orlando Moore, one of the individuals who died in the Dominican Republic. It's Tuesday, April 16th, 2019, 5 to 8 at the Steam House Restaurant and Lounge, which is located at 128 Gramerton Avenue. You can find both flyers on any of our social media. It will be up, and I'll put it, when I post the site, I'll also put the flyers at the bottom of this post for the radio show. So you could be doing anything right now, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This is blackwestchester.com presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com, giving you that real talk for the community since 2014. Until next week, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it.